So can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Right, so I came into security in a really interesting way. I started off my career as an Army intelligence analyst during the mid-90s, so very focused on kind of conventional conflict and understanding risks and threats, kind of in those terms. And then as I got out of the military, I got more and more interested in computers and became an administrator, a Unix administrator, and got very tired of rebuilding little old ladies' home directories and decided to get out of operations and get more into security. I loved it. I took a Sands class and just was really bitten by the security bug. And that was at a point in time where we found kind of this convergence between security and intelligence, especially within the Beltway back in DC, and was really able to kind of take those experiences and kind of turn it into kind of this new breed of researcher or analyst that's really focused in around threat intelligence and not only painting the technical picture or the story as to what we're seeing in the ones and the zeros, but how that impacts the organization, the region, the globe in a broader way. So,
in your particular area that you're working with it at the moment, what do you think are the biggest challenges in the security arena?
Well, I think that we are our biggest challenge. If you look at an enterprise security team, they're just fragmented. They're broken. The SOC has their own silos, their own solutions, their own tools, and only after a certain amount of events or a triage of an event is handed over to an incident response team, and maybe it meets a certain threshold before the executive team gets involved or HR gets involved. And so there's all these moving parts of people, but sometimes the left and the right hand don't even know that they're there and are certainly not handing the things off in the most efficient way. And if you look at all the vendors here, there's also a problem with interoperability between all those solutions that those enterprises are investing in. And so that's really what we're trying to mend, is that fragmentation between those people and their respective processes and all the technologies that they need to be doing to do their job.
So, looking at it from a business perspective, what would your one major piece of advice be to a business owner on how to get their security right?
Yeah, I mean that answer really depends on who that customer is, how big they are, what geo they sit in, and really the sort of risks that they're going to face. Obviously a bank is most likely going to be targeted by organizations that have a financial interest, right? A defense integrator or a diplomatic agency or company or agency would be focused, maybe a nation state entity might be of interest to them. So it really depends on the different type of customer. And so obviously doing the basics and really looking at threat in a way like if I'm not finding it, I'm not seeing it, I'm okay. And, I'd argue that if you're not seeing anything, maybe you're not looking hard enough. And so it's really important to consider how we work, live, and play on the internet. Everything we do is really on the internet, and so it just makes it such a high payoff, low risk medium to gather information, whether it's state secrets or banking credentials.
Talking of state secrets and international security, I know that you've worked in that field before. What are your thoughts about the supposed threat from China and other countries to Western democracies? Right.
I mean, back to the internet being that medium that's like low risk, high payoff, right? A lot of these countries see it as a great place to collect information. And so, we've seen, the industry kind of rise up and take notice to a variety of different actors that are leveraging this medium to collect information for a variety of different reasons and motivations. And it's that motivation which is the thing that organizations really need to be considered as to what could affect them? What sort of security investment should I make? Not only my people, but also the technologies to look for and or manage the risks associated with those things. I think the expectation that these, I do this stuff and the bad man's going to go away is not really rooted in reality. It's how do I do my job to a certain degree of success while I manage this problem, knowing it's not going to stop.
So, obviously, a while back, they were saying, security experts were telling me that software developers were kind of adding security on as a sort of add-on rather than building it into the software. Has that changed now, do you think? Where are we now?
I very much see us in a, building on security, the bolt-on security while the aircraft is in mid-flight, and that's, really always been the case. And I just think that again, it kind of goes back to there's constant change. The enterprise is never standing still. People are constantly coming and going. Processes are always changing. Technologies are always changing. And despite all of that, we still have to do our jobs. And so, that's why I think that again, folks are thinking, oh, this is always after the fact, but no, we're responding to, reacting to that new thing that we're finding, or the new, a new technique, or a new sort of vulnerability and risk. And so, again, it's just being able to manage the risk through that chaos, through that change.
Now, I know you've been doing some work with the Sands Institute, for example. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So Sands has a cyber threat intelligence class which they're offering, and so they are including the methodology in which our platform is based on. So the Diamond model of intrusion analysis, which helps analysts and organizations take a closer look at the problems that they're facing. So not only addressing the ones and the zeros, the capabilities, the malware that the adversaries are using, and the infrastructure that they're using, very much where what these solutions are rooted in focus on. But then there's also the adversary and victim axis of the Diamond, which focuses on the motivations, the interests of the adversary into the victim. What are the patterns that we can see out of the victims? Why are they hit, in the certain times that they are, and how? And so being able to understand that helps SANS better inform their students how to put all the pieces together, where to look for information, and how to tell that word picture to their leadership so that they can take that information back to make an informed business decision. And so SANS is doing some awesome work. They're leveraging ThreatConnect as well as some other solutions to help their students tell those stories.
And talking of students of security, IT security, cyber security, where are we? Are we getting enough security experts through at the moment, or is there a shortage?
Certainly a shortage of folks that do what we do. I think the industry finds themselves in a situation where they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and you just kind of have this constant churn in terms of your bench. And it goes back to that fragmentation issue that I was talking to earlier, with people constantly moving. Every time someone moves, you have that brain drain. And again, points back to why we should be memorializing our information, displacing that cognitive load within the enterprise, so that we know why that signature was deployed, because it was associated with this threat. So there's certainly not enough folks. Automation can only get us so far, but we really do need to be bringing up kind of the next generation of tea leaf readers that can effectively communicate not only technical ones and zeros, interpret, understand that, and tell a story with it, but help a business leader make an informed decision as to what they do about it.
So are you an optimist? Are the good guys going to win in the end, or is there going to be no end?
It's a great question. I really don't think there's going to be an end. It's managing security, managing risks. Like one of the examples I tend to kind of go to is the issue of global terrorism. We're never really going to be able to stop global terrorism. It's the things that we do to manage that. And so with security, there's always going to be the brokenness of man who wants to take something that doesn't belong to them. And so there's always going to be a requirement for people to implement controls and policies which regulate behavior, whether it's the innocent user clicking on the thing that they don't really understand, or an outside entity trying to come in and take something that doesn't belong to them.
Within the IT industry, I mean, BCS has a desire to see greater professionalism within the IT industry, because obviously much older, more established professions have their own governing bodies, and they can be struck off their practice list, whereas in IT it doesn't happen like that. Yeah. Do you think that governments should get more involved and make those sort of professionalism of the IT industry mandatory, or do you think it should be a voluntary code of practice?
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of that I really like. Obviously, you want to make sure that you have high standards and rigor with the the credentialed person that you're picking up. But anytime that there's a bureaucratic body involved, sometimes there's some efficiencies that do tend to slow down. There's, especially when we have such a shortage of people, and really it's a people thing, a people game. It's some of the problems that we're trying to solve aren't necessarily only bound to technology. It's the people that get things done. And so anything that kind of limits and or kind of controls that sort of thing, governs it, could help, but also could hurt. And so I think it really depends on the situation and how it's done. But I think that there can be a balance that's struck.
And if you want to encourage someone to come along and start working in IT security, what would you say to them? How would you encourage them to join the throng?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think be passionate and put yourself out there. One of the best things you can do is just put your research out there, put your analysis out there, and don't be discouraged if it's wrong, but learn from it. Practitioners will pick up on that, and we look at a lot of resumes, and I'd much rather see your GitHub code. I'd much rather see your blogs, examples of what you've done in practical examples. I mean, look in your inbox and look at a spam message, analyze the malware or whatever and post a blog about it. That's a great virtual resume, and that will help me understand what you can come do for me within my research team or somebody else's research team. So, putting yourself out there, stay hungry, and the best way to learn is, in my opinion, is to do it. And that experience compounded with any sort of academic studies is just going to make somebody extremely valuable and in demand.
The more security experts I speak to, the more it becomes apparent that the main threat is really people. People making mistakes, people doing the wrong thing. How do you think we can make the education about security better?
I think making people understand that there's real tangible threats to losing a bunch of emails or losing healthcare records. Some of these problems don't manifest until years after the fact, and people can see, hey, I accidentally turned left, or I broke a policy which damaged equipment, or damaged a vehicle or something like that, and they can see a tangible, cost and potential injury or something like that. And with cyber, that sort of thing just isn't as clear and present, and so being able to have people think about it in those terms, I think can help them better understand the implications as to what their behaviors can cause for an organization.